The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus went into the region of Caesarea Philippi, and he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said in reply, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus said to him in reply, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. And so I say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then he strictly ordered his disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I think one universal thing that fallen human nature rebels against is authority. So we just kind of have a little bit of a little knee-jerk reaction against authority, I think. We probably inherit this from our first parents. You go back to the Garden of Eden. What was their kind of their big thing? Is like, well, yeah, who's God to say that he has this, say over us, not to eat from this tree, right? They were tempted in that direction, but we still have that tendency to rebel against authority. So you think of throughout Christian history, even in the kind of the first schisms between the East and West church, like way back in the 10th century or so, it really was against papal authority, I'd say. And then you fast forward Protestant Reformation. Yeah, who's the Pope to say this, right? You think of the 60s, Yeah, we don't need authority. 1960s. Okay, it still goes on today. And there still is, I think, a rebellion against this top-down authority that's like, this kind of dictatorship. Somebody just telling me what to do. But in our very nature, we love authority. Human nature wants authority. We need it. Authentic authority, I'd say. And what is authentic authority? Well, you just think of that word. Authentic comes from the word authority. They start out the same way. Author comes from authority. Okay, this true notion of authority comes from this guy that's like got authority because he's a creator of something. So a songwriter would have authority over that song because I wrote it, man. God has authority over us because he created us. But that's the kind of authority we desire. Somebody that can help us become fully who we're created to be. God can do that. So he gives us guidelines and rules to help guide us in that way. That's authentic authority. All right, Jesus has that. You think of when he was, preaching, coming on the scene, people would say, what is this? This new teaching with authority. And they liked it. Like, I can buy this. And something about Jesus carried a clout that his authority resonated because he's God, right? But there's something in him that I can get behind that kind of authority. All right, that's the kind of authority Jesus is passing on to Peter today. And we call it apostolic authority. So we think of, Jesus, he's with his disciples. Hey, who do people say that I am? John the Baptist, all that. Who do you say that I am? Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And what's Jesus say to him? He says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. All right, it's not Peter in his infinite wisdom that nails this. It's the Father working through him. And so Jesus is like, you're the one. You're the Pope, man. Right? He recognizes it, that the authority, the wisdom that Peter just spoke there did not come from himself. It came from the Father. And so in the church, we call it apostolic authority. In Peter, in a particular instance, we'd call this infallibility. That Peter has a certain amount of infallibility that comes from God, not from himself. And we see this contrast because as this story goes on, we're familiar with this gospel, right? And then there's still more to it. And so after this scene, Jesus starts telling his disciples that he's going to suffer and be raised, killed and raised and all this stuff. And Peter's like, whoa, partner, you're not going to suffer. We're not going to let that happen. And then what's Jesus say to Peter? Get behind me, Satan, right? You're thinking not as God, as men. So the charism of infallibility doesn't mean that every word that comes out of the Pope's mouth is gold. No, only when he speaks in faith and morals and in certain directed situations, we can trust his guidance, his authority. But he can still put his foot in his mouth on other issues, right? So he's still human. So it's an interesting charism that we have that we call apostolic authority. We call in this particular case the charism of infallibility, right? That when the church speaks, we can listen. One super great document of authority that we have, the church has given us, Catechism of the Catholic Church. I mean, you just open that thing and it's just like guidance on how to not only live the Christian life, but also like flourish as human beings. The church continues to guide us, and she doesn't guide us by her human wisdom, but her infinite wisdom that comes from God, right? And we see that again today. So we can just have that assurance that when we listen to the church on matters of faith and morals, we're listening to God. And that kind of authority helps us to flourish as Christians, but also as human beings personally. So it's just a great gift that God has given us through the church, through the apostolic succession, apostolic authority, that when we hear the church speak, we hear God speak. And God is our creator of us personally. And so his authority helps us flourish as human beings, as his beloved sons and daughters. So we see that outlined today. I think it's helpful to recognize that we have the disposition us to rebel against authority. Who are you to say for me to do this? Hey, in the church, it's not just some man saying it, it's God saying it through his apostles, through the authority of the church. So when we hear the church speak, listen up, right? She has our best interests in mind. And she also carries within herself the authority to help guide and govern us. So it's a great gift, whether we like it or not. But it is helpful to listen up. The church has our best interests in mind. And she carries within her the authority that we all desire, that authority that comes from God that can help us to flourish as the Father's sons and daughters.